This is Commander Sarah Chen, retired, formerly of the Citadel Defense Force. I held the walls of Citadel Station for 3 days against 500,000 enemy soldiers. On the 4th day, I ordered my last 300 Marines to fix bayonets for a final charge. I did not know that 2 million reinforcements were falling from the sky behind enemy lines. This is Case File 117 Siege. This is the story of the breaking of the Horde. Citadel Station was not built to be a fortress. It was a colony hub, a trading post, an administrative center for the Terminus sector. 12 million civilians lived within its walls. Families, merchants, children. When the Dominion of Krath invaded the sector, Citadel Station became the last refuge. Every colony that fell sent survivors streaming toward us. Every battle lost pushed more refugees behind our walls. By the time the Krath reached us, we had nowhere left to retreat. I had 8,000 Marines, professional soldiers, well-trained and well-equipped. Behind us stood 12 million civilians who would be enslaved or slaughtered if we failed. The Krath brought 500,000 warriors. They emerged from the horizon like a tide. Endless columns of soldiers, siege vehicles, mobile fortresses. The ground shook with their approach. The sky darkened with their aircraft. 500,000 against 8,000. 62-1 odds. My tactical officer calculated we could hold for 18 hours. Perhaps 24 if we were lucky. I sent a distress call on all frequencies. To the Federation. To any allied species within range. To anyone who might hear. I did not expect an answer. Help was too far away. We were alone, but I sent the message anyway. Someone should know how we died. Then I turned to my Marines and told them the truth. We cannot win this battle. We probably cannot survive it. But those walls protect 12 million people who are counting on us. We will hold until we cannot hold any longer. And when the walls fall, we will make them pay for every meter in blood. 8,000 voices answered as one. Yes, Commander. The siege began at dawn on day 1. The Krath did not waste time with negotiations or demands. They simply attacked. Wave after wave of warriors hurled against our outer walls. Siege cannons pounded our defenses. Aircraft strafed our positions. We held. Our walls were thick. Our weapons were accurate. Our Marines knew that retreat meant death for everyone they loved. For 16 hours, we threw back every assault. The Krath dead piled at the base of our walls. Their siege vehicles burned. Their aircraft fell from the sky. But we were losing people too. 100 dead by noon. 300 by nightfall. Each loss was irreplaceable. Each empty post was a weakness the enemy would eventually exploit. By midnight, we had lost 500 Marines. The Krath had lost perhaps 30,000. The mathematics had not changed. Day 2 was worse. The Krath brought up heavier siege weapons. They concentrated fire on specific wall sections, creating breaches that we had to defend with bodies instead of stone. I pulled Marines from quiet sectors to reinforce the breaches. This created new weaknesses. The Krath probed constantly, finding every gap, exploiting every moment of exhaustion. My soldiers had not slept in 36 hours. They fought in a daze, muscle memory and adrenaline keeping them functional. I watched them die at their posts, too tired to dodge, too stubborn to retreat. By nightfall of day 2, I had 4,000 Marines remaining. The outer walls were cracked in 17 places. 3 major breaches had been sealed with bodies and debris. The Krath had lost perhaps 60,000 soldiers. They had 440,000 remaining. I stopped calculating odds. The numbers only brought despair. Day 3 broke something in both armies. The Krath commander threw everything into a massive assault at dawn. Every soldier, every vehicle, every weapon focused on overwhelming our defenses in a single push. We should have broken. Any normal army would have broken. My Marines were not normal. They fought like demons. They held breaches with bayonets and bare hands. They died standing, facing the enemy, refusing to give a single step without cost. Sergeant Major Williams held the eastern breach for 4 hours with 17 Marines against continuous assault. When ammunition ran out, they fought with knives. When knives broke, they fought with fists. When Williams finally fell, she had killed 37 enemy soldiers personally. Lieutenant Park led a counterattack through the northern breach, pushing the Krath back through sheer fury. He was wounded 6 times. He kept fighting until the 7th wound finally dropped him. By then, his squad of 40 had killed over 300 enemy soldiers. Corporal Vasquez, 19 years old, manned a gun position for 11 hours straight. When the gun overheated, she grabbed a rifle. When the rifle jammed, she grabbed a Krath blade from a dead enemy. She was still swinging it when medics finally pulled her off the line, too exhausted to stand. Stories like this played out across every section of wall. Every Marine became a legend. Every position became a monument to human stubbornness. But legends die. Monuments fall. By nightfall of day 3, I had 1,200 Marines remaining. The outer walls were lost. We had retreated to the inner defenses, a smaller perimeter that we could barely cover with our depleted forces. The Krath had lost perhaps 100,000 soldiers. They had 400,000 remaining. And we had nothing left to give. I gathered my surviving officers at midnight. 1,200 Marines, 300 able to fight, the rest wounded, exhausted, broken. The Krath would attack at dawn. They knew we were finished. One final push would overwhelm our last defenses. I had no reinforcements, no reserves, no tricks left. I had 300 Marines who would die before they surrendered. At dawn, I told them, we will counterattack. They stared at me. Counterattack? With 300 soldiers against 400,000? The civilians cannot escape. If we stay behind these walls, the Krath will eventually breach them and slaughter everyone. But if we attack, if we hit them hard enough, we might buy time. Confuse them. Make them think we have reserves they haven't seen. I drew my sidearm. It won't work. We will die. But we will die attacking, not cowering. We will die making them afraid of us. And maybe, just maybe, we will kill enough of them that the next human force they face will have better odds. My officers nodded. They understood. There was no hope. There was only the choice of how to die. Fix bayonets at dawn. We charge when the sun clears the horizon. I did not sleep that night. None of us did. At 05:30, 300 Marines assembled at the main gate. Wounded soldiers who could walk. Officers who had not held a rifle in years. Cooks and technicians who had grabbed weapons from the dead. Everyone who could stand. I took my position at the front. A commander should lead the final charge. The horizon began to lighten. The Krath army was visible in the distance, forming up for their final assault. 400,000 soldiers, preparing to finish what they had started. I raised my sword, an antique blade my father had given me. Useless in modern combat. Perfect for what came next. Marines, it has been an honor to serve with you. Today I stopped. Something was wrong with the sky. The pre-dawn light was flickering, brightening in ways it should not, colors that did not belong to any sunrise I had ever seen. Then I heard the thunder. Not thunder. Engine roar. Thousands of engines screaming through the atmosphere. I looked up. The sky was on fire. Drop ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Descending through the atmosphere in columns of flame, filling the sky from horizon to horizon. They were not heading for the Citadel. They were heading for the Krath army. My communications officer grabbed my arm. "Commander, we're receiving transmissions, Allied frequencies, Federation signals. There's—" The first drop ships hit the ground behind enemy lines. Hatches blew open and soldiers poured out. Not humans. Vorn warriors, their massive frames carrying heavy weapons. Korvax shock troops in powered armor. Thessian marines in assault configuration. Behind them, more dropships. Thousands more. Landing across a front 20 kilometers wide, directly behind the Krath army. The Krath had been facing us, prepared for a final assault on exhausted defenders. Suddenly, they were caught between two forces. My communicator crackled with a voice I did not recognize. "Citadel Station. This is Grand Marshal Keth Vorath of the Allied Coalition. We received your distress call 4 days ago. Apologies for the delay. Traffic was heavy." I could not speak. I could not process what I was seeing. "We have brought 2 million soldiers from 30 species. We are landing behind enemy lines now. I suggest you hold your position and let us do the heavy work. You have earned a rest." 2 million soldiers. The Krath commander tried to pivot his army to face the new threat. But you cannot pivot 400,000 soldiers quickly. And the Allied forces were not waiting. The Vorn hit their rear lines like a thunderbolt. 30,000 warriors who had trained for exactly this kind of assault, smashing into enemies who had expected to face exhausted defenders, not fresh reinforcements. Behind them came the Korvax, then the Thessians, then species I did not recognize, pouring from drop ships in endless waves. The Krath army, which had spent 3 days breaking itself against our walls, suddenly found itself fighting on 2 fronts. The hammer had met the anvil, and the Krath were caught between. I stood at the gate, watching the battle unfold. My Marines stood with me, bayonets still fixed, tears streaming down exhausted faces. We had been ready to die. Instead, we watched the enemy die. The Battle of Breaking lasted 6 hours. The Krath tried to fight. They tried to retreat. They tried to surrender. The Allied forces did not accept surrenders. Not that day. Not after what the Krath had done across the Terminus sector. Of 500,000 Krath soldiers who had besieged Citadel Station, fewer than 20,000 escaped. The Dominion of Krath never recovered. Their invasion force, the largest army they had ever assembled, was annihilated in a single morning. And it happened because 30 species answered a distress call from humans they had never met. After the battle, Grand Marshal Keth Vorath came to the Citadel. I met him at the ruined gate, still wearing armor covered in 3 days of blood and dirt. "Commander Chen, you held for 3 days against impossible odds. The galaxy will remember your stand." I was too tired for eloquence. "Why? Why did you come? The Terminus sector is not Allied territory. Humanity has no treaty with most of your species. Why risk 2 million soldiers for us?" The Grand Marshal smiled. It was a strange expression on his alien features. 400 years ago, human ships found a Vorn colony dying of plague. They had no obligation to help. They helped anyway. My great-grandfather was on that colony. He gestured to the other Allied commanders gathering around us. Every species here has a story like that. Humans who helped when they did not have to. Kindness shown to strangers. Debts created through compassion. He placed a hand on my shoulder. You called for help. The galaxy answered. Because that is what you have taught us. That is what humanity has shown every species you have encountered. He paused. Someone always has to stand for those who cannot stand for themselves. A human said that once. We decided to listen. I looked at the battlefield. The bodies of 400,000 enemies. The dropships still landing with supplies and medical teams. The Allied soldiers from 30 species walking among my exhausted Marines, offering water and food and simply being present. We had held for 3 days expecting to die alone. We had been saved by a galaxy we did not know was watching. The Citadel Memorial stands today where the Eastern Breach was finally sealed. The names of the 6,800 Marines who died in the siege are carved into black granite. Beside them are the names of the 30 species who answered our call. Visitors come from across the galaxy. They stand before those names and remember what happened here. 8,000 held against 500,000. 2 million came to finish the fight. And a galaxy was united. One act of kindness at a time. This is Commander Sarah Chen, signing off. Case File 117. Siege is now closed. They surrounded us with 500,000 soldiers. We held the walls for 3 days. And when we could hold no longer, the sky caught fire with our salvation. Remember Citadel Station. Remember what 8,000 can do when they refuse to surrender. And remember what 2 million will do when they answer the call. The walls held, the horde broke, and humanity learned that we will